Should be now.
All right. We will call, what are we in? September? Yeah. September? Yeah, September. Planning Commission meeting to order. We are, hey, yeah, we got another video participant. We have a new member tonight. Is it appropriate to do the introductions so that we know who's approving minutes and talking about the rest? Can we allow a few seconds for the new member to introduce themselves to everyone?
I would love that.
Well, please have the floor.
All right. Hello, my name is Dr. Vicki Anderson, and it's my first evening to be part of the Planning Commission. I'm really happy to be here and be of service to everybody. And I am excited to get started. If you have any questions, put them in the chat and I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Very good. I've been a long time since we had these meetings, so I guess first order of business is to review. What do we have to vote on June minutes? Is that right, Garrett?
Yes.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
We need to do a opening roll call.
Yeah, because we're virtual. So was Ethan on? I can't see all the participants at once. There they are.
See him.
No. Oh,
Ethan
man.
is not with us.
All right. Well, Sam, you want to do a roll call then?
I can attempt that. I don't have the information in front of me, but I can do that. We'll start in the corner. Jason Farmer.
Here.
Charlie Boss.
Here.
Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Jamie Blanton.
Here.
Dan Landrum.
Here.
And Eddie Davidson, correct?
Eddie Smith here.
Eddie Smith, I'm sorry. Eddie Davidson,
Sorry.
law professor of mine. I apologize. Eddie Smith. And then Susanna Murdoch is not present, and Ethan
And Mike Richards.
and Mike Richards is not present.
Mike's wedding anniversary.
My apologies for
No, I definitely hung you on that one because I wouldn't have known all the last names either. So,
Ethan usually has that and he's not here, so we'll blame it on him.
all right. So, through roll call, now we go to minutes, right?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have motions or second.
A second.
All right. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Yeah, roll. Aye.
Oh, roll call vote as well. All right. You want to give it a second? Another shot?
sure.
All right.
Now, this just has to be the people that are on the screen, Sam, so
Right,
sure.
I got it this time. Jason Farmer,
Yes.
Charlie Boss,
Yes.
Jamie Blanton,
Yes.
Dan Landrum. Dan, you're muted, just for the record.
Still yes.
Yes. All right. Eddie Smith. And Eddie, you're muted too. Sorry. Just in case there's an audio.
Yes.
All right. Vicki Anderson.
Yes.
Now, just for the record, I am not keeping minutes. Is someone keeping minutes? I can if necessary, but I have not been to this point. Garrett, is that something you could?
It's recorded, isn't it? On YouTube?
It is recorded, but you'll still need a physical minutes. It is on YouTube. Yes, sir.
I'll take that on. I'll grab them off the video.
Perfect.
All right, very good. Well, we're leading directly into this agenda is somewhat informational, but it actually has an implementable task. According to Mr. Haynes and his predecessors, there are a few either cyclical loops or dead ends in our ordinances where if then fails to have an answer after in certain conditions. So we're excited to hear about some of those. This will be a good test. I'm sure it's not all of the opportunities that towns have to further detail and make sure that all the approval pathways work. But Garrett will go over those. We spoke briefly. Many of y'all may have been or may not have been on the phone, but essentially we're going to introduce them. If it's something very obvious that we can attend to and we want to try and take a vote to suggest a revision, depending on how easy that is, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just sort of deliberate briefly, keep it in the back of our minds, and then hopefully come up framing some language for any revisions that we need for our next meeting. If no one has any objection to that, we'll let Garrett go ahead and get into it.
Sure. Let me get my screen share started. Essentially, this discussion came up. Can you only see one screen or one document, or can you see both side by side?
One right now.
Okay. Is it full screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially what I have thought ever since I started here was kind of different and didn't quite make sense to me. It was when I was reviewing plats, I would go through the Signal Mountain subdivision regulations. And once I got to section 5-103.302 for preliminary plats, and then 5-105.301 for the final plat, it defers to the Hamilton County subdivision regulations for their standards. That seemed a little off to me and my coworkers. Essentially I'll just get in with the highlighted text right here. Section 5-103.302 titled the preliminary plat in the Signal Mountain subdivision regulations. The highlighted sections and the sections in red are what I have an issue with. It reads, specifications and requirements for preliminary plats shall be the same as those adopted by Hamilton County and found in Article 4 of Hamilton County of the Hamilton County subdivision regulations. Include also the information required in Part 403 - information required in addition to the preliminary plat. There's two issues there, two big issues. One, I guess the first major issue is that it defers to Hamilton County subdivision regulations, which the town of Signal Mountain has no control over. That's the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. So what I found today was that their most recent amended subdivision regulations was in February 2020. I want to say February 10th, 2020. That was news to me. Nobody lets it. I guess the issue is nobody lets the town of Signal Mountain know that the Hamilton County subdivision regulations have changed, even though we refer back to them. Does anybody have an issue with that? I'll open that section alone for discussion.
Garrett, one thing I noticed today when I looked at that, and I don't know if it was that change or one of the prior ones, but that Article 4 of the Hamilton County subdivision regulations no longer even has to do with the preliminary plat.
Right. That was mine. Well, I guess the second and third issue that I had. The second issue is that Article 4 doesn't apply, and highlighted in gray, the Part 403, that doesn't exist in Signal Mountain subdivision regulations or Hamilton County subdivision regulations. There's no additional information outside of section A and B below. So that text alone, in my opinion, needs to be corrected. However, the Planning Commission sees fit, and the same applies for section 5-105.301 regarding the final plat. It's very similar text, except it refers to Article 5 of the Hamilton County subdivision regulations, and it refers to Part 503. There's not a Part 503.
Where's that last one you were
I have
referring
a
to?
question.
Pardon me?
What was the last part you were referring to?
The final plat, the preliminary, I guess what I'm referring to is the final plat and the preliminary plat sections of the Signal Mountain subdivision regulations refer to incorrect locations in the Hamilton County subdivision regulations.
Got it.
because you'll see here, here's just 3 issues off the top of my head, is that Hamilton County has the authority to change their own subdivision regulations at any time, and we don't have no say so. They could make their developers in Hamilton County do things that we don't agree with or don't really want to abide by, but that's what our subdivision regulations state. So technically that's what we have to hold them to.
Seems like we could probably get ourselves in a situation where someone cherry picked what they wanted to.
Sure.
What
Well,
will we
hey,
lose? Go ahead, Jason.
So can I ask a couple questions? So I think we may be going a little deeper than we need to. So Garrett, this only refers to the submission approval of a preliminary plat and a final plat, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have our own set of subdivision regulations that are completely different than Hamilton County, and then our regulations refer to the Hamilton County regulations in only these 2 areas. Because I can tell you from experience, subdivision regulations in Signal Mountain and subdivision regulations in unincorporated Hamilton County are they're beyond apples and oranges. They're totally different things. And one of us wouldn't want the other. So are our subdivision regulations otherwise silent on the process for approving preliminary and final plats, or do they speak to it in other areas? Because it sounds to me like this is just a mistake with some language that was left in.
Right. Yeah, it definitely goes into more detail. It's just, this is what I was hoping to get changed. Because, I mean, Hamilton County subdivision regulations aren't bad. It's just a matter of we defer to them and we have no control over them. So essentially what I would recommend in the end is following suit with what they have in place, just have them within our document under our jurisdiction to control.
This is Charlie.
I would not agree with that.
Oh, it seems like it's not referring to them for the approval process. It's just for what's required to be on a preliminary plat.
Correct.
But not for approving the preliminary plat or final plat.
Correct.
It seems like it's an outdated referral.
Right. It's the standard for a preliminary and final plat.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, we have a planning staff. While we wouldn't take any reference to another municipality out, and I'm not trying to complicate the plat process. Just write it into our subdivision regulations that's similar in what we agree with, and then the Signal Mountain subregs have a process for preliminary and final plat.
Right. Exactly.
And by the way, it's also guidelined by the state. There's very specific rules about preliminary and final plat approval and what you can and cannot enforce.
Right. Basically, all I'm getting at is that we need to have those regulations in our subdivision regulations and not refer to Hamilton County. Even if they are the same, they just need to be within our subdivision regulations. That's all.
So would we just solve this if we just took out the sentence and said specifications and requirements for preliminary plat shall be the same as those, and that sentence ends with required in addition to preliminary plat? We just took that paragraph out. Does that solve it?
I don't think it's necessarily that easy. I would suggest having Jamie or Garrett review something and send it to us and send it to Mr. Cash for review, because there are some specific things that you can and cannot enforce in preliminary and final plats that are required by the state. And so just make sure instead of just striking a couple sentences out, make sure you get it right.
Right.
Seems
Seems
like what we need to do is add or find what used to be Article 4 and see what the specifications and requirements for preliminary plats are in Hamilton County, and propose that language just to be added in here specifically.
Sure. So I guess in my mind, what I was thinking for maybe the next meeting that we hold, essentially doing what you said, is have Hamilton County subdivision regulations in the form of how it would be presented in the Signal Mountain subdivision regulations and see what you guys would like to keep and what you would like to change, and have the subdivision regulations amended to make those changes and take out this highlighted sentence.
Well, there'll still be applicable components of the county, depending on, I mean, all of the subsequent language. I mean, we're not going to maintain GIS independent, and so there'll be, yeah. Anytime you have a referral spec, to me, it's easier to have a less descript referral spec. That spec and requirements for plat shall be those reflected in both Signal Mountain and applicable other counties or regulatory authority regulations, and not say a specific article, a specific section, because those do change, and some of the information required may change or be consolidated, streamlined. If we can do that, it looks. I think we could do that to fix this statement. Just refer it over to any applicable statement, chiefly those in our subdivision regs and any of those that impacted in Hamilton County. Be a little less descriptive here, because when you go to submit preliminary plat through both us and the county, then you'll have that laundry list as updated by whatever year you're operating in, right?
I think we're trying to be our own lawyer here when we have staff that we're paying to do this. I mean, I think, here's the problem. We agree that there's a problem. Garrett just needs to go fix it and bring us back a solution.
Done. All right, next item.
Sure. So what I put on the screen is the Hamilton County subdivision regulations that I pulled today that were amended in this year, 2020. And so you can already see the article's different. For Article 5, for the final plat, it is correct, but Article 5 covers preliminary plat and final plat both. So I mean, yeah, as Mr. Farmer stated, I can definitely make these changes, present it to you guys, and we can work through it from there. I just wanted to make everyone aware of what it looked like from my end and the public's end when they actually go to subdivide property. But I mean,
okay. So I guess, do we all agree in Garrett's assessment that there is a revision required?
100%.
100%. And we'll wait. We will anxiously await Garrett's improved documents for our approval.
Okay. And so we all agree that it's within purview of the commission and SETD to go and do that and bring it back to us.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent, Garrett. Well done.
I have one more thing. I guess just to feel you guys out on how you would like to address this. I know we've addressed, or the topics come up of the actual timeline of everything, and the actual submittal of the plat. They submit it to me 15 days prior to the meeting. I take a handful of days to review it, and then I send it to everyone in the town essentially when the agenda packet goes out, which could be up to a week prior to the meeting. That seems like a little short notice, and I feel like that's what we've discussed previously, is that seems short notice for the town to get it, to review it prior to the planning commission meeting. And so I guess this is kind of two-part. What you have on your screen here is an example of certifications from other subdivision regulations. Essentially, these go into detail about who needs to sign off on the plat prior to the planning commission meeting itself and the planning commission secretary signing off on it. One, do we want to have these on the plats? Because I think that we should. And two, how do we want to streamline the process for submittal of plats, I guess?
Okay, hang on a second. I'm on my phone. I can't read what you have, but you said something that kind of scared me a little bit. So on the first topic, yes, I'll be happy to help. I go in front of all kinds of planning commissions. If what you just said is lightning speed, it is absolutely lightning speed. It should be, that's way too fast for a proper review to be done, in my opinion. But signatures on a preliminary plat,
It'd be a final plat.
That's fine. Yeah, and signatures on a final plat is normal. I thought you were talking about the submittal process for a preliminary plat.
No, sir. Essentially, what
But that's originally what you.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's originally what you were talking about. Is our original preliminary plat submittal process, correct?
Or the plat process in general, submitting a plat for review.
Okay.
But yes, essentially these certifications would be under the final plat section. And essentially, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it's like a certification, certificate of ownership and dedication, a certificate of approval of sewage disposal, you know, which we already cover with Hamilton County Groundwater and WWTA. Road standards, certificate of approval by electric power utility. I know in other communities that I work with,
Jason, check your text. I just sent it to you.
EPB only reviews it if we send it to them or if Hamilton County GIS sends it to them, but that's not the case a lot of the time. I mean, there's certain certificates that I feel like should be signed off by other parties that aren't us, and we should see that those parties have reviewed it prior to the Planning Commission Secretary signing off on it. Because once the Planning Commission Secretary signs off on it, they can go record it, and it's final at that point.
And these are questions that come up every time.
Wait a second. That's not true. No, they cannot record it. I mean, they could go record the document, but you can't build it until all the signatures are done.
Right.
So that is inaccurate. So if the Planning Commission Secretary signs it and it hasn't been signed by the WWTA or EPB or whoever the groundwater control is, or the various departments in the town, like Loretta, if she has to have her signature on there or whatever, I could not believe that our town would issue a land disturbance permit for something that has inadequate signatures on there. So, I mean, what you're describing to me in the final plats that I've seen the few years that I've been around here are already done. We've seen those signatures on there.
Sure, there's a handful of signatures that are on there that are similar to these. There's a certificate of ownership, the surveyor, the town, Hamilton County GIS, WWTA or groundwater, myself, and the town representative. That's off the top of my head. I could be leaving one off. But these go into a little more
depending on the
Sorry, go ahead.
Depending on the level of service you're getting, you may have other signatures on there, but I don't know why we would be in any more detail other than what we have, and that is consistent with the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County and Collegedale and other municipalities. I don't know why we would add more steps to the process.
I was thinking that turnaround time had to do with that discussion that we had a year and a half ago, just based on we're trying to keep people from being delayed by some inordinate amount of time or beyond the limitations when that would dictate they had to refile 6 months or 12 months later. I thought that super narrow.
That was for zoning cases, Jamie.
But
that was zoning cases.
But we only sign our signatures only on a plat if it is a zoning issue, right?
No, the conversation we had a year ago was the timeline for zoning case submittal.
Okay.
That's the only time that we've reworked that zoning submittal process.
Okay.
So I guess to keep the conversation moving along, if certifications were out of the question, leave them as is, would you guys be open to reworking the language so that the actual engineer surveyor has to send it to the town as well as Hamilton County GIS? Because the way it works now is they're supposed to send it to Hamilton County GIS, and then Hamilton County GIS disperses it to EPB, Hamilton County Groundwater, WWTA, and myself. Should we require that they also send it to, say, Boyd or someone at the town so that they get it at the same time everybody else gets it? Because that's not currently how it is.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yes.
Okay.
We've definitely run into issues where we have staff as small as ours. If somebody's out for a few days, we start running up against a hard timeline to get something reviewed, and it's proven difficult at times. So if we get it as soon as anybody else does and our staff can be reviewing it, I think that we'll be able to provide a much better work product for the Planning Commission for discussion.
It's very reasonable, Boyd, that you should have it for a month.
Definitely more than a week or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's well within reason that from the time of submittal to the time of hearing is a month. That's even still somewhat fast in some places.
So as I understand it, that's 2 action items for me to be working on prior to the next meeting. 1, addressing the preliminary and final plat, and reworking the language to make sure the town gets it at the same time I do. Is that correct?
And relative to the first discussion we had, and I know some of you will already have it, but it was a lot easier to reply all. So you'll get it again. I went ahead and sent everybody the county subdivision regs as a whole, and you can refer to the Article 5 specifically to see what we're working on here. But while I had it up, I just wanted to send that out to everybody.
Is there any question of sequence as far as the signatures that go along with the amount of time that we have to review it? Some of those signatures can be, they're not all sequential. Some can be proposed and considered concurrently, right? I gotta quit phrasing everything as a question because I'm uncertain about what I'm trying to say. I'll make it actively. I believe that signatures can be petitioned for or applied for concurrently, which might impact the time that we would receive it or be expected to turn it around.
Well, one thing's really not the other in what you're describing. So the review process is really the preliminary plat. That's like your whole big kick at the cat. That's when you can get into, at least in some of our stuff, into some design. If you get into the nature subdivision, whatever it's called, you can get into design and those kind of things. And then what happens is you get your preliminary plat approved, you go and you build your development. And so for the purposes of the final plat, which most times for me, it's just a quick 1-second vote of a planning commissioner, and it's approved because it's already been staff reviewed that the final plat has met the preliminary plat, or the developers made changes along the way. Once a final plat goes through the approval process, then it's the developer's job to go around and carry their plat around and get signatures on it so they can get everybody to approve it, and then off to permitting and building. So really the signatures is not necessarily a function of the Planning Commission. It's a function of permitting after a final plat has been approved by the Planning Commission.
I guess I would disagree with that. In my opinion, I think the Planning Commission should be the last signature on the block.
the planning commission signature should be the last signature on it. That's fine. But after, no, you don't get signatures until the final plat has been voted on by a planning commission. A final plat has been approved. Now, sometimes some municipalities will approve a preliminary plat and a final plat simultaneously. We don't do that in the town, or at least I've never seen us do that in the town. So once a final plat has been voted on, then you disseminate signatures. And you're correct. Oftentimes the secretary of the planning commission is the last one, or the staff is the last one to sign.
Our practice has been that I'm the last one to sign it. It
There you
comes to us with 2 blanks, planning commission and then me. And once the secretary, or at least a planning commission representative, has signed it, then I'll sign off on it. And that's just, as a staff member, I'm in a position to make sure everything else is there before it gets the last signature. The only reason we do it.
Right. And in that scenario, Boyd, it may have been voted on a month before, and the developer's carrying around trying to get signatures for 2 or 3 weeks before it even hits your desk. So it sounds to me like our process from final plats is not broken, other than fixing the language.
Garrett, is there anything that we as non-professional planning commission members are missing from an informative standpoint, those of us who are not developers, that we, it seems like we're often asking questions, and I don't think I'm confusing this with zoning issues either. It seems like we have to say yes, assuming that this gets taken care of and this gets taken care of, and with those signatures get us in a more complete position if they came prior? No?
You're saying if the signatures from everyone else came prior to the planning commission?
Right.
Right. In my opinion, that's how the planning commission would know that everybody else has reviewed it, in my opinion, because it's my understanding that, again, the planning commission should be the last one prior to recording, and therefore anything after that, it can't, once it's signed by the planning commission, it's relatively final and they can go get it recorded. I understand that they still have to go get permits and everything has to be checked off on that side, but it's past the planning commission's desk at that point.
Well, so are we a departure from Hamilton County then? That's what the Hamilton County regs are. Applicant circulates the final plat for signatures after planning commission approval. Now, planning commission approval can come without a signature from the secretary. But presumably, if you've been approved, there wouldn't be anything that would keep the secretary from signing it. We talked a little about that, chicken or the egg. Why would we zone something that lacks the capacity to, meet traffic, or, unstable slopes, or, wastewater, whatever those other restrictive reviews might be. But seems like we approve it. That's not necessarily a signature, but it could be a signature, and then it's circulated. I think we look at it before it's all signed. Yes, it's easier on us. If everybody's signed it, then the work's done. They've made the decision for us. So I don't know if we've got that. I don't know if we have that backwards. Boyd, is the planning commission presented final plats prior to receiving all the other associated signatures?
That's the only way I've seen it done.
Right.
Get final plat approval, then they circulate it to everyone off the mountain, and then it finds its way back here for signature from planning commission and then me. But that's all subsequent to being considered by the planning commission and approved by vote.
Well, with the
Well, so what happens if for what happens if planning commission approves it, town finds something wrong with it, and then the town wants it corrected on the plat. Is the town going to make them make those changes and go through the whole process again? How would
No,
that,
if there's a change that's outside of what the planning commission does, presumably it would still be approved based on the discussion that we made. That's the other problem that we've gotten into, is talking about traffic and slopes and stormwater and sewer when that's not our job.
Sure, but shouldn't that discussion come prior to the meeting or at the meeting? I mean, I'm just saying, what if we find something after the fact? What if the town's reviewing something, they find that they didn't do this, they didn't do this, they didn't do this.
Yeah, it seems like we had one of those not too many months ago, Boyd, where it's like we could potentially rescind our approval based on it either not being developed or they elect to do something different and not needing it. If they don't need for us to like abandon something, an alley, we voted to do it, but it never was constructed, never was built over. The alley still exists. We could rescind that approval, right? See, I did it again. I still put right at the end of the statement.
Yeah, I don't recall the specifics on that, but I mean, we have had issues and recently where we've had, and I think a lot of this will be resolved by requiring that we have the plat in hand 3 or 4 weeks ahead of a meeting. Then we can find these things. One of the, it's a blessing and a curse. We've got Cliff, that's a former surveyor that has eyes like a hawk, and he sees a lot of things that we don't. But if he doesn't get his hands on it early enough, that sometimes comes after the fact, and it's already been approved, and there's some detail that isn't what it needs to be.
So I guess Mr. Farmer mentioned it previously, saying that the town should have at least a month to review it. How does the planning commission feel about backing up the minimum due date for final plat or plats to get on the agenda? Making it a month, making it making the deadline be today for next month, essentially.
So based on your experience, is that reasonable for us to do? Because it sounds reasonable. Jason might know if there's a reason why it wouldn't be from his practical experience.
There's another municipality within Hamilton County that does it.
Okay. Jason, any thoughts on that?
That's very, regarding only preliminary plats, that is very reasonable.
Do we need that in the form of a motion?
I wouldn't think so. It would just be part of the revisions that I bring back to the next meeting. So that'd be the third item, if I'm tallying correctly.
I like that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Eric, can you put together a timeline for when things have to be done with a reference to the regulations where that exists?
Sure. Right now or in the future?
No, when you do the other thing.
Okay.
Are you done?
Me?
I was
Sorry, I didn't.
kidding. No, I was kidding. I was kidding. Have you done it yet?
Okay. Well,
Can I offer one more quick thing? Because we've finished preliminary plats, and then we were kind of going back and forth between final plats, preliminary plats, and all that conversation was kind of getting mixed together. The way we do it now is it works. It works. It's the way that in 6 different municipalities that I've probably worked in, it all works the exact same way. So for what it's worth, in my opinion, it's not broken, nothing bad, as long as Boyd Veal's signature is the last signature on a final plat, that is what I, as a citizen of the town, care about the most, and that is our protection.
okay. So I don't I don't know that anybody has an objection to that. So Garrett can make sure that any language revisions that you make include that stipulation. And Jason, I'm guessing that I think you mentioned before, if Boyd had all the time that he needed to do that, that's no objection either, right?
Correct. I mean, as long as, I mean, the process of getting signatures on a plat could take months. So yes, as long as, you know, if there's something wrong or the planning commission has an issue or Loretta has an issue or whatever, Boyd doesn't sign it until the issue's resolved, and that's how it works.
Okay, is that clear enough, Garrett, as far as language to include, as far as a plan ahead?
I think so.
Okay.
Can always fine tune it next time.
Yeah, so we don't have to bite off more than we can chew at the moment. You want to take those as marching orders and try and get that tidied up, and we'll hopefully not break another section of ordinance somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
Did we adequately discuss the subdivision regulations review?
Yes, that's all I have.
Okay. We didn't have it shown on the agenda, but we'd like to leave. Are there any citizens on the line that wanted to speak to the planning commission?
No, there are no citizens.
Very good. We will take that all as a pre-Labor Day congratulatory. We're doing a great job. All right, so I don't have anything else to do. I'm glad Garrett's putting these together. I like finding old regulations that need to be modernized, so I'm excited about that. And unless anyone else has anything, I don't. So feel free to either introduce a new topic here or motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
I'm starting to get worried.
Well, I mean, it's nice to give everyone the opportunity to make a comment if they needed to, but we'll take a motion to adjourn. Do I have to take another roll call to vote to adjourn?
You're good.
We're good. All right. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
I will
Good night.
I'll review the video and send you minutes.
You guys broke me in easy. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.